here on LBC. Over the next half an hour, it's your chance to put questions to the new chairman of the Conservative Party, Brandon Lewis. He's here with me in the studio. If you'd like to watch us as well as listen to us, you can do it via the LBC Facebook page on Facebook Live, or just go to the LBC website, lbc.co.uk. Brandon, welcome. You're inheriting the chairmanship at a time when the Conservative Party membership seems to be at an all-time low. Morale is very low in the party. What are you going to do to G 'em up?
Well, thanks for that introduction, Ian, and good evening. Thank you for having me on. No, look, the reality is we had an election last year that meant we didn't get the outcome and the result that we would have liked in terms of the number of seats, but we have got to remember we did get over 42% of the vote, biggest vote share we've had for a long time, and we need to build on that, and we've got to make sure that we're getting out there, talking to our volunteers, our activists who do so much fantastic work, delivering leaflets, knocking on doors, raising money all over the country. Make sure we're engaging with that and actually spreading that wider and wider and wider to encourage more people to come and help us, work with us, be part of the Conservative family.
Before we go to the calls, you can phone in 0345 6060 973 if you have a question for Brandon. I'm going to ask you a question that Martin in Yorkshire asked on Twitter earlier. He says, how can we regard the Tories as a professional party when you can't even organise yourselves to know how many members you have?
Oh, well, actually, it's because we're democratic. The reality is we're not a centralised party. We're a localised party. Our local associations have their own membership and run their membership locally. So that's the part of the challenge is we have got that issue around the country that our local areas, our local associations run their own membership.
Well, his follow-up tweet, he should be an interviewer himself, he says, if you don't know how many members you have, how can you organise a leadership election when the time comes? Because then you do have to know who they are, don't you?
Well, what we do in a leadership election, because obviously people pay their subs in through their local association, is that database that local associations have got to go and access their members who have paid their fees. Now, one of the things I'm very keen to do is make sure that we get that data working better so that I can communicate and all of us can communicate with our members and make sure they're part of that wider family as we go forward. And the beauty of where we're moving with technology is we can actually start moving forward and doing that. As a volunteer party, I always remember we have got volunteers. It's not people don't work for us, there are volunteers.
Will you commit to publishing the membership figure when you do know what it is?
Well, I'm not getting into what the published figure will be because it's localised.
We know what the Labour Party membership is. It's close to 600,000. We know the Liberal Democrats have got 105,000. I understand that your membership now is below 100,000. Pretty shambolic state of affairs, isn't it?
My experience generally, and my advice would be to not necessarily believe every rumour that somebody hears, but I'm very keen to work to make sure that we do two things. One is actually making sure we extend our membership and have more people want to be members of the Conservative Party, but actually what I'm really focused on as well, of course, is making sure we've got more and more people part of the Conservative family. Now, that could be that they're happy to deliver leaflets, help raise some money, knock on doors, or vote for us, not necessarily always just being a member.
Let's go to the calls. JJ is in Reading. Hello, JJ.
Hi there, guys. How you doing?
Hi, what's your question?
My question to Mr. Lewis would be, as a 30-year-old card-carrying member of the party, how are you going to, re-engage and reassert yourself with my demographic? I mean, I'm at the stage now, and I am an activist, and I knock on doors, and I'm going to be trying to be involved with the local elections in May. But it's come to the point, and I never thought I'd say this, that it's almost embarrassing to be associated with the party. I mean, the fact that we had so not only was there an absolute balls up as an example, with the Twitter, with the reshuffle, then there's a typo on one of the tweets, and it's just become absolutely farcical. I mean, as a younger member, my parents own a business where we employ 700 colleagues. It's only the fact that the leader of the opposition is an absolute left-wing loon at the moment. If there is a more centrist candidate in the likes of Dan Jarvis, Andy Burnham, come along and take on that Labour leadership, I would actually listen to them.
JJ, what's your question?
My question is, how are you going to reinvigorate the younger vote?
Well, actually, I think you make a good point. And look, first of all, can I just say, I want to say to you and actually anybody else listening who like yourself has been involved, has been an activist, thank you for what you do. People like me I wouldn't be sitting here elected. I want a seat from Labour, and if it wasn't for activists like yourself, I wouldn't have got elected, helping me and my colleagues around the country. So thank you for what you have been doing, and I hope I'll be able to convince you to continue to do in the future. I think in terms of younger people, there's a range of things we need to do. We need to encourage more people like yourself to come out and be more publicly involved in the party and get involved and think about even being candidates as well. You know, we've got Ben Bradley, one of my new vice chairmen, who's in his mid-20s, who's a brilliant member of Parliament. You'll see him here a lot more from the
late 20s, to be fair.
Yeah, well, it depends. If somebody's 46, I'm still going for mid-40s. But but having more people like that, getting more publicly involved and seeing what can be done and that we can make a difference. But also, I think there's this real key about actually outlining why what we are doing in government matters to people of all age groups and actually younger people as well. I also take on the chin. I think somebody fairly well known once said there's something that is made out of too many tweets, and we've got to just make sure we get our social and digital media absolutely spot on.
It's embarrassing though, not just that, but apparently your people forgot to renew the security certificate on your website. So on Monday morning, when we were all trying to look at the website to see who was in, who was out, the website was down.
Well, I got appointed mid-morning on Monday, so I'm going to be focusing on where we go moving forward. We're going to make sure we get our digital media, but not actually just our digital and social media, but actually how we communicate with people right across the country, whether it's through leaflets, door knocking, digital, social media, and obviously talking to good people like yourself.
JJ, quick reply.
So would you actually have a target? So I think it was 66% of under 30s vote Labour. Do you actually have a target in mind of how you actually need to grow your penetration?
The short answer is I want to see more penetration in terms of having more penetration into getting more people to vote with us, to be interested in what we're doing, understand why what we are doing matters to them. But I'm not. I've always resisted putting arbitrary targets on things, and I'm going to, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to avoid doing that for now as well.
You've got to have some criteria for success. Is it appearing on stage at Glastonbury? That will be the moment that you know that you've connected with the youth vote.
Well, the interesting thing with Glastonbury, actually, of course, if you look at some of the things that were happening at Glastonbury, it wasn't quite necessarily the reaction that was portrayed in some of the media, but as I can't sing, I wasn't planning personally on performing at Glastonbury anytime soon. But look, it is about making sure that we are engaging in a way that people of all different age groups, of all demographics, in all different parts of the country feel that they can relate to, and that will be using that entire team of vice chairmen that I've got, a really good diverse team of people.
Just before we go to our next caller, when the Prime Minister appointed you, what did she say to you, and why do you think you're the man for the job?
Well, I'm not going to go into the details of private conversation. I have to say I was really, really honoured. I'm still getting my head around the honour that the Prime Minister put on me to be the chairman of a party that I absolutely love. I was an activist. I was delivering leaflets, knocking on doors, a branch officer, then an association officer and chairman. So my heart is absolutely making sure we take the Conservative Party forward. And I made it very clear to the Prime Minister, I take that responsibility very, very seriously. And I want to deliver. So ultimately, the ultimate answer, Ian, is to make sure we win at the next general election.
What have you got that Chris Grayling hasn't?
Well, apart from the fact I'm going to make sure we get our Twitter feed right, and I'm sure that will be a Twitter joke that will be around for some time. Actually, look, we're very fortunate, whether it's Chris, myself, a whole range of other people. We've got a great, talented pool of people in the Conservative Party.
OK, well, we've got some very talented callers. Let's go to another one of them. Stefan's in Newport. Hello, Stefan.
Hi, thank you for taking my call. So, Mr. Lewis, my question to you is, as a Tory member myself, is it time we consider replacing Theresa May as leader before the next election in order to avoid the disaster that the 2017 election brought?
Well, Stefan, good evening, and thank you for being an activist and an involved supporter of the party. Look, absolutely no. I supported Theresa May to be Prime Minister. I think she's absolutely the right person. She's the person who, despite what some people were saying leading up to Christmas, was able to get that deal with Europe. I think we will get a good deal with the European Union. And if you think about where we're going to be, when the next election is 4.5 years roughly away, if we are able to deliver a good deal for the United Kingdom as we leave the European Union, if we deliver on that domestic agenda that's been very clearly set out again this week, delivering the housing that we need in this country and actually making sure we've got a good health and social care system, good opportunities for education and job security for people, I think we could be in a very strong position to go into that next election. But we've got to make sure we deliver on that and that we explain what we're doing and why that matters.
Stefan, you're an activist. You clearly want to see Theresa May replaced before the election.
Well, I currently do support her in her leadership. And what you said about getting a good deal for this country may be correct, but you can't shy away from the fact that she is a terrible campaigner. And, I mean, everyone would admit that, whether from the Conservative Party or Labour.
Well, look, we got roughly 42.5% of the votes in the election in 2017. We didn't win all the seats we would like to win, but we got a huge vote share. Well, actually, all of us have got a job to do campaign. Actually, I have to say, one of the things that struck me, and one of the reasons why I backed Theresa May to be the leader of our party initially, was in the run-up to the 2010 general election, I was fighting a target seat. It was a marginal seat, a Labour-held seat, and you get lots of people come and visit, supporters, activists, and ministers and shadow ministers at the time obviously come and visit, and it's brilliant. They come and do visits. Theresa May was the one who came and said, can I do some canvassing? And knocked on doors in a really tough part of my constituency and went down, which she is really good at campaigning.
Let me counter that with a story. I remember campaigning once when Jeffrey Archer came to a constituency to campaign, and we said, well, let's go canvassing. Jeffrey said, no, complete waste of time for someone like me. I need to be meeting lots of people, not individual people. That's going to have far more impact. Now, that was somebody who knew a bit about campaigning, whatever else you might say about him.
Look, I'm not going to argue that actually it's about doing both. And we've got to get out there, knock on doors. And actually, one of the key things, my activists in my constituency still remember the fact that they had a shadow minister, now the Prime Minister, knocking on doors. And all of us in the Conservative Party have got a job to do to deliver on campaigning.
So you're telling Stefan that she's there till the election?
I would hope that she is our Prime Minister beyond the election and that we win that election and keep her there as Prime Minister.
OK, Stefan, thank you very much for your call. More of your calls to come, 0345 6060 973. You're listening to LBC. Brandon Lewis is here with me for another 15 or 20 minutes. If you'd like to get a call in, 0345 6060 973, and you can watch us on Facebook or the LBC website. It's 5:15. Let's go to the news headlines with Thomas Watts.
Health officials say they've paused some routine hospital inspections this month because of the severe demands on services. Victims of taxi rapist John Warboys say they're still not being consulted about the conditions of his release. And the new chairman of the Conservative Party, Brandon Lewis, has told Ian Theresa May remains absolutely the right person to be Prime Minister and to go into the next election in a strong position. The LBC Travel News is next.
Wiper blades in winter. Squeaky, streaky. Rain rattles your windscreen. Smears rattle your confidence. Can't see, can't drive. Can't believe you haven't been to Halford yet. We fit new wiper blades on the spot from just £2, and we're open late 7 days a week. Ready for winter's worst? Ready for anything. Halfords, for life's journeys.
Wiper blades sold separately. Selected vehicles only. In most stores. Check for opening hours.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
Today I asked you to help with my LBC ABC anti-bullying charter campaign. Children's Commissioner for England, Anne Longfield.
It's Snapchat that has one of the particularly addictive elements where you have to streak with friends and keep in friendship with them. For parents, I would just think, unless you're very sure, just don't let your kids on Snapchat.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast every weekday morning from 7, only on LBC.
Creating a perfect holiday with Travel Republic is just like creating anything. You start off with the basics, like, I want a beach holiday. Then you add a little more. A 4-star hotel. Then you add a few more flourishes. Near the beach, a local restaurant, flights from your favourite airport, and it's all been reviewed by people like you. And before you know it, you've made something really special. Book your perfect holiday. Search Travel Republic now. Travel Republic, yours for the making. At or protected.
At Homebase, we want you to challenge us on the price of our new kitchens, even during competitor sales. So come put us to the test and book your free design appointment today. Homebase, always low prices.
Get more for less with Mobalpa kitchens. Stylish on the outside, clever on the inside, with up to 20% more storage space than a standard size kitchen unit. Order now to pay no VAT for a limited time only. Find your nearest Mobalpa kitchen studio at mobalpa.co.uk.
It's Tuesday afternoon, and just when you're headed for a long lunch, the client feedback comes in. All those ideas you sent over, they're toast. They want more concepts by end of play, but the team is working from home. What are you gonna do? Drag them in from the depths of suburbia? No! You're gonna jump on a conference call and have the mother of all thought showers. That's how you clean this mess up? Oh yes, those ideas are gonna scrub up well. Call and conquer with conference calling from Powwow Now.
Check the lights, check the installations, check the crowd, check the smiles, the oohs, the ahs. Check out the 75 RT angles I've just posted online.
Lumiere will be lighting up London again from the 18th to the 21st of January. There will be road closures, busier stations and bus service changes, particularly around King's Cross and the West End. from 4pm to 11:30pm. So before you check out the light fantastic, check your travel. Search TfL Lumiere Travel. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Divorce. It threatens the things you've worked hard for in more ways than you can imagine. Your home, savings, pension, and most of all, your relationship with your children. Don't let divorce cost you any more than it has to. Cordell & Cordell is dedicated to helping men in matters relating to divorce. Call now on 0330 60 60 161 or visit cordellcordell.co.uk. Office in central London. A partner men can count on.
Ian Dale at Drive on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
19 minutes past 5 here on LBC. Brandon Lewis, the new chairman of the Conservative Party, is with me. It's only his second full day in office, so good on him for coming in, facing the music, so to speak. We are on Facebook Live if you want to watch us as well, or the LBC website at lbc.co.uk. Ian is in Romney Marsh. Hello, Ian.
Hello, thank you for taking my call. The question I'd like to ask, as a natural Tory voter and a Remain supporter, the last election I voted Labour, mainly because I feel that their position is a bit more nuanced. It's not clear, don't get me wrong, but one of the biggest reasons is because I cannot stand the phrase, the will of the British people, and I want to know why is it that the Conservatives and Theresa May insist on using that phrase when you maybe don't realise that you're pushing and alienating people like me, because I feel that I'm not represented by you anymore.
Well, look, I'm probably in a similar position in the sense that I was somebody who voted Remain and campaigned for Remain, which is quite a bold statement to make when you represent Great Yarmouth.
Do you feel alienated like
No,
Ian?
and that's to say, no, I don't. And I think, let me just explain why you hear that phrase. I think ultimately it's that appreciation and recognition of a couple of things, but actually its core is I'm a Conservative and ultimately I am also a Democrat in the sense of I believe in democracy. And there was a referendum and there was an outcome and there was a decision, and we have to absolutely respect that. And even if we're on the losing side, if we don't respect that, then actually we get ourselves into quite a dangerous place. I think a very great man, much better than myself, once said, democracy may not be perfect, but it's a lot better than the alternative. And we have to respect that. And therefore, actually, we as a government have got a job to do in delivering on what was voted for, which is that we leave the European Union
want to come back?
and get the best deal we can.
Yes, it was just, it's not a case, I accept the result. I don't like it at all, but I just think you need to pay more acknowledgement to the fact that half the country didn't vote for it. And
so you basically feel the Conservative Party is just for the 52% and ignoring the 48%. What can you do about that, Brandon?
Well, actually, look, if that's, I take the point you're making. I think that I'll take that on board in terms of making sure that what we have got to do is explain that there are people out there who feel very strongly that they wanted to leave the European Union and obviously voted that way. But I do appreciate there's a large number of people out there who voted Remain but do respect the decision, like yourself, like myself. And what we've got to outline is why the deal we're looking to get from the European Union, while we keep using this phrase, and you'll hear me use it time and again as I did in my previous role, is about getting a good deal for the United Kingdom. And that is about saying, look, the country made a decision, we've got to deliver on that, and we've got to do it in a way that works for our economy, works for our communities, because we have been partners with the European Union for a very long time now. We want to continue to be good, strong partners and friends with our friends across Europe, as well as the rest of the world. And actually, I've got to say, one of the things that became very clear to me in my role as the Immigration Minister until earlier this week was that when you look at what the opportunities are for our country, and you talk to countries around the world about these huge opportunities that there are for us, both in trade and in our society and community work, actually there are some big opportunities as we leave the European Union. We've got to make sure we capitalise on that for the benefit of everyone.
Does that mean that you've changed your mind, that if there were another referendum tomorrow, you'd vote leave?
Well, I don't think there should be another referendum, and I don't work in hypotheticals. I think there was a vote, we respect the vote, we get on with it, and actually we deliver on getting a good deal for our country.
No, but I think
actually do it in a way that does mean we leave.
It's a question to ask. Jeremy Hunt could answer it, so I'm not sure why you can't.
No, I can answer it. And my answer would be, if we were voting for the first time, I voted Remain, and I'm not going to changing my position on that. I think I did that for some very clear reasons, not least of all the energy industry in my own constituency. But having had a referendum where the country voted to leave, if somebody else came into government, if we had that awful situation of Labour coming in and wrecking our economy and running another referendum, or the Nick Clegg version of another referendum, I would vote to respect the first referendum and I would vote to leave.
But those concerns that you had on June the 23rd, 2016, you still have them, don't you?
Well, I voted to remain originally and campaign remain because I had the energy industry in Great Yarmouth. I also, as the housing minister, was aware of the housing industry's desire and need for stability. Actually, what we've seen since the general election is our economy has been able to continue to develop and work. And that's why, actually, I'm really optimistic about the future. And I think we can not only get a good deal, but continue to see growth in those areas.
That's exactly what Jeremy Hunt said. He added also that he didn't like the way the European Union had bullied this country, and that's why he said he would now vote leave. But you can't quite go that far.
Well, no, I said if there was a second referendum now, I'd be voting leave because I'd always, apart from anything else, I'd be respecting the vote that happened the first time round.
Wendy is in Enfield. Hello, Wendy.
Oh, hello there. It's a very quick question, actually, but what will you do to put a brake on rapid social cleansing to the outer London boroughs, which is simply creating deprived areas where deprived areas never used to be?
What do you mean by rapid social cleansing, Wendy?
This question is very important, actually, because if you don't do something about it, your Tory marginal seats will disappear in the outer London boroughs, and also you won't do very well in the local government elections because people don't now see these areas as being dumping grounds.
What do you mean by rapid social cleansing?
Well, rapid social cleansing, under the 2012 Localism Act, local authorities are no longer legally obliged to house people within their own catchment areas anymore, and that's been a disaster for the outer London boroughs.
Brandon?
Well, look, actually, I think that's about having local areas working together and actually recognising that the way our communities work, the way our economies work, this is actually partly what the local enterprise partnerships are about in a different scale as well, is recognising they go beyond the arbitrary boundaries that were drafted for local government purposes long ago, and actually letting areas work together. And actually, those areas that can only people can only move around through the local authorities if the local authorities themselves agree on it. And I have to say, my mother-in-law lives in an outer London borough herself, and I have to say I don't recognise in some of the outer London boroughs that I go to what you have outlined. But it is about making sure that we do have the opportunity for people to be able to have a home of their own. And I think that's one of the important things Theresa May has done this week in putting housing really again at the forefront of our programme of work over the year, not just the next year, but the next years ahead to deliver those houses that we need right across the country.
Wendy, thank you very much for your call. Just one or two from me before we go to our next call. It's emerged today that victims of John Warboys say that they're still concerned they haven't been consulted on the terms of his release licence. Is the Ministry of Justice making a complete mess of this?
Well, I literally, in the last few seconds we're sitting here, saw that run on the ticker tape across the screen. So I'm not going to try and answer a question I don't know the full details of, but I do think it is important. I think the parole board itself and the chairman himself will be before MPs relatively soon, look at how they can make sure that victims who have gone through something have confidence in the process. But I'm not going to comment too much on saying I've literally just seen in the last 30 seconds on a ticker tape.
But you would agree that victims should, by definition, be consulted in these cases, or at least informed of the conditions of someone's licence?
Well, I think it's very clear that victims should have the confidence in the entire system. And in different cases, there'll be different things that they need. And that's something that the MOJ, but also the parole board itself and the independent chairman of that needs to have a look at.
You see, there is a perception, and you've worked in the Home Office, that the Tory party is now a bit soft on crime. You look at the police numbers, etc., and there is this impression being given. That's not a good place for the party to be in, is it?
Well, there's two different things between the Ministry of Justice and the Home Office, and I would say actually, police numbers are a really good example of where we are very clear about seeing that we have actually protected police spending. We're actually seeing police services across the country recruiting people at the moment. But what we've always been focused on, and what the Home Secretary and the previous Home Secretary, who's now Prime Minister, were very focused on, was about having more police officers actually on that front line doing police work. That percentage has actually gone up in terms of their time on the front line.
The next question is actually on policing, so let's go to Alan in South Woodford. Hello, Alan.
Good evening, Ian. Good evening, Mr. Lewis. Thank you for taking my call.
Evening.
Yes, my question is in regards to national policing. There does seem to be a policing crisis in terms of visibility and the motivation of the police force across the country. And I just wondered what measures you were going to take in terms of this problem.
Well, good evening. Here in South Woodford brings back memories, as I went to school near there when I was some years ago now. But look, Ian, policing is changing as crime is changing, and a couple of things have been happening over the last few years. One is, and actually it's a really important issue, we're seeing more and more people having more confidence about coming forward with certain crimes, particularly sexually based crimes and crimes against women as well. And that's a really good thing. They're reporting crimes. So we're seeing reporting going up. What we've actually seen in the crime survey that outlines actual crime is that crime itself is falling, and the police have been changing how they work to reflect modern crime, particularly as we change into a much more digital based world. So there's police chief constables I know when I was talking to in my previous role as the policing minister, who were explaining that when they were recruiting policing officers, they were also looking at recruiting officers who could focus on online work. And I can also remember visiting where a police centre where they were working on some online work and online crime. Actually, there was, in one case, from my own constituency, but this centre was up north. So it's about making sure we're moving and changing how we police in line with how crime and criminals are acting and changing. The digital world means that's moving very, very quickly.
Alan, thank you very much indeed. Diana in Braintree has texted and say there's a new code for MPs on bullying and harassment. We know your party has had problems in this area. What new procedures are you going to put in place to stop this happening, and what should the ultimate sanction be?
Well, there is a new ministerial code, which all the new ministers have been given, and I read myself the very afternoon that I was given it, and we all have that. There is also a code and a process that the party has. All parties should be having this, and of course through Parliament we're looking cross-party, the leaders themselves and the Leader of the House, about how we go forward to make sure, actually regardless of what political party, and all parties have had issues around this, that people feel confident and comfortable about coming into and working in politics.
Admittedly, you're only 2 days into the job, but are you going to look at the code that the party's got and see whether it is fit for purpose?
Look, I absolutely want to make sure we have got a code that is not just fit for purpose, but makes it very clear to people that we take this very, very seriously. I want to make sure that people have confidence that when they're getting involved in politics in any format, that they can be comfortable about that, and that they will be treated properly and well.
So you will be looking at it for review?
Well, making sure that it is absolutely tip-top to give people the protection that they should have.
Let's go to James in Derby. Hello, James.
Hello. I'd just like to ask how Brandon is going to get those working class Leave Labour voters like me and my family over to the Conservative as well. We voted Labour in 2015. All of us voted Conservative in 2017. As the 2017 election showed, that Labour Leave vote stayed with the Labour Party, and UKIP, some of it went back to Labour. But yeah, my question to Brandon is, how is he going to get those working class Leave Labour voters over to Conservatives?
Well, look, first of all, thank you for voting for us, and obviously I hope in the future we'll be able to convince you to vote for us again. And the way I want to focus on doing that. Pardon?
I'm a member now.
Oh, brilliant. Well, look, brilliant. Thank you very much for doing that. And well, look, the way I think we can convince you and others not just to vote for us and join and continue to do that, and more people to do that, is actually 2 key things. First of all, we are very clear. We are leaving the European Union. We're the only party who can categorically say we are going to leave the European Union. But also, I think what's really important when we get to the next general election, which will be after we've left the European Union, is actually that we are delivering on that domestic agenda and outlining why, yes, we are going to work to get the right deal, and I'm convinced we will get a good deal with the European Union, but also that we will be working on that whole programme of work domestically around education, contingency, good education opportunities, good job security, good job opportunities, safety and security at home, as well as good care and opportunities for not just young people, but also people later in life, and making sure that we are outlining why what we are doing works and delivers for people of all age groups and in all parts of the country.
James, thank you very much for your call. I don't know if you were, I'm sure you were too busy this morning to watch the Daily Politics, but Andrew Neil interviewed Debbie Abrahams, the Shadow Work and Pensions Secretary, and she found it very difficult to answer this question. I suspect you'll find it less difficult, but why do you think that there was... I mean, Toby Young's tweets, I think we can all agree, were disgusting and offensive, and he resigned in the end. There was a sort of Twitter mob that went after him, and there was a lot of pressure on him to resign. Why hasn't there been for the Labour MP Jared O'Mara, whose tweets were equally or possibly more offensive, or indeed the Shadow Chancellor, John McDonnell, who, let's remember, said about Esther McVeigh that we should, quote, lynch the bitch?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to answer in the sense I cannot get my head around why anybody, particularly in public life, it's Jared, John McDonnell, the disgraceful, disgusting things they have said to people and personal attacks. My view is in politics, actually, we should respect the fact we all get into politics, I would hope, to make our country a better place. That's something we should all have in common. We might disagree on how to do that, but that core principle should be there, and we should respect each other in that. And the kind of personal attacks we see against people like what is now brilliant Secretary of State Esther McVey, and I've seen this with other colleagues. I myself have seen some stuff over the years in various roles I've done. I just can't understand why the Labour Party do not want to deal with that, to be able to say, and we should, if we see that kind of thing from any of our colleagues, we need to be able to say, this is not acceptable.
For the same reason that your party didn't deal with Toby Young when it could have done.
Well, no, actually, there's a difference there, and I think that we need to be very clear about this. Toby Young's comments from the past were completely unacceptable. Prime Minister outlined, she thought they were unacceptable, and if he now in a government role was to take on it, make any comment, anything like that, it would be completely unacceptable, make his position untenable. But the reason he was appointed, with not knowing about those comments at that point in time, was because of the work he has done on making sure more people from more diverse backgrounds, particularly deprived backgrounds, have a great opportunity to access really good education. We shouldn't underestimate that. That's slightly different to a situation of the shadow chancellor who, as a member of parliament, has done that kind of personal attack and calling for physical attacks on other members of parliament, let alone the kind of comments Jared Amar has made, and the party not wanting to deal with that.
Should there be a by-election in Sheffield Hallam?
Well, that's a massive. The Labour Party and Jared Amar have got to look at it. If there's a by-election in Sheffield Hallam, we will savour it, we will go after it, and we will do everything we can to make sure people have a good opportunity to vote for an alternative.
Just to finish with another news story that I don't know whether you've caught up with this. Former leader of the Liberal Democrats, Tim Farron, has spoken of his regret at bowing to pressure to say that he felt homosexual acts were not sinful. He was asked why he changed from being initially evasive about his views on gay sex to later saying he didn't think it was a sin. Let's just listen to his answer.
The bottom line is, yes, of course I did. And there are things that including that I said that I regret. And there was a sense in which I felt, look, I've got to get this off my table. The issue is, here's a general election, great opportunity for the Liberal Democrats. The Labour Party at that point were nosediving. The Tory Party looked very much like it was arrogantly assuming it was going to get a 100-seat majority. What an opportunity for us. And all they wanted to do is talk about my Christian beliefs and what it actually meant, and all the rest of it. And I would say foolishly and wrongly attempted to push it away by giving an answer that frankly was not right.
That was Tim Farron speaking on Premier Christian Radio. Should he still be allowed to be a Lib Dem MP?
Well, I think it's best to let political parties and let the Lib Dems deal with their own issue. And actually, Tim's religion, his religious views are. Let me just answer that by saying I think I'm very, very proud to be a member of a party and one of the members of the party who voted to bring about equality with the votes on gay marriage. I'm very proud of that. I think as a party, our position on diversity and recognising that is something we should be very proud of, and we should be looking at every opportunity at how we can do more to create that equalisation across all different backgrounds and diversities, whether somebody is male, female, gay, straight, from the north, the south, old or young, have every opportunity in life to get on, and that's what I believe in. And I think that's the best way I can answer Tim's comments.
But if it had been one of your MPs that had done that, where they had been deliberately evasive and then gone on the radio and said that today, I mean, this is why people can't stand politicians, because they say one thing and then a few months later say, well, I didn't really mean it.
Well, I've always been very straight about what I think, what I believe, and I will intend to continue to do so. And I'd hope we all strive to do that.
Brandon, we hope to have you back again soon. That's Brandon Lewis. Thank you very much, the new chairman of the Conservative Party. And we are going to talk about that issue with Tim Farron, by the way, after 6 o'clock. We're going to be talking about sin and whether it's still a modern concept. You're listening to